All right, it's Fabric Tip Friday again. I walk next door here to my cousin Brian. He has a Central Arkansas Aircraft Repair, and they're actually doing a cub wing, and just going to try to use this as a time to explain just a couple things that we do. Everyone has their own way of doing wings, and every one of them is no doubt right. Just pointing out a few little things. People always call me about the seam in the front or what you normally do there. I have one video on YouTube on where I was covering a kind of a mock-up champ wing for just display purposes, but it's 72-inch fabric, so we usually here, whenever we restore one, or Brian and them next door, we start with the wing upside down, and after you've did all the squaring and getting everything situated, we go around, and you've got with AirTech, you just put down a base heavy glue and you let it dry so everything will move around on it. But we go around and we start actually at the top of the trailing edge and come around. So really it's just kind of spotted on here at the trailing edge, and then he'll dress out the end and do whatever he needs there. And we normally like to go ahead and put a base on here before we come around. It just makes a good clean. And this one is not going to quite reach the back, and when he flips it over, he will cut this hot gun or however they use to make this from the factory. It's a little too thick. They usually wet it a little bit and take a razor under something and cut it so that the next piece of fabric will go around the top and come around. And you can bury that in with an iron and it will prime over. You can put just maybe an extra pass of primer and it will cover really well. But what I wanted to just do the short video here, I'll do other videos different times of covering. I've had several people ask me about the wing tips, and this is my cousin Brian. He will do a little short explanation of what he does on the wing tips, because like I said, we don't do the seam in the front as far as both of them lapping. We double wrap the leading edge, and like I said before, with AirTech, you put the glue down on all the structure first. You don't put it on as you go, and it completely dries. And as he'll show you, you can wet through the fabric, or you can raise it up and wet under it and activate it, or you can activate it with an iron. So I'll let him just do a short explanation of what he does on a wing tip.
All right, everybody, good to be here helping Robbie with this video. We've got the fabric tacked down, or pretty much glued down all the way except for the wing tip. What you can see is always leave yourself a good amount of fabric to pull. Fabric is relatively inexpensive. I know you don't want to waste anything, but you want something good enough that you can get a good grip on when you're going around this wing tip. Now on the actual metal part of the wing tip, I'll lap it around and we'll have a seam here, but the wooden wing tip bow, as you can see, it's already been primed with glue. It's got the nice shiny glue on it. And it's just that thick. So we're going to glue to here, and then we'll wrap it on the inside. What I'll do is I've already got the prime glue on it, so I'll take my glue brush.
Now, one thing I want to mention is a lot of people, and it does work, they'll talk about just taking a brush and activating it in and flipping it over. And especially on the other side, fabric coming around. You can take a business card or something and an iron under it so it don't activate the glue, and you can shrink as you go. But if you'll notice, as you are just gluing it down, you get these wrinkles. When he talked about pulling, like that wrinkle right there, when you start putting the pressure to it, you can actually, that compound curve will actually go away. You got to put a little pressure to it.
Yeah, you can put a little pressure to it, but you don't want to get just real crazy, because if you, and that's another thing in covering wings or tail feathers or any piece, you're not trying to stretch the fabric when you're gluing it by hand and get it tight, because the heat is going to shrink the fabric. You can actually get it too tight by hand, and then when you heat shrink it, can cause a little damage. But anyway, I've got a good amount of fabric here to hold on to, and instead of just pulling it down, usually I like to actually pull it back toward itself like that. And then we'll start right here where I've already got it glued. We'll get a handful of fabric. We'll pull it around like that. And then we'll just start wetting it through. I've got my brush loaded up with glue. Wet it through. Kind of rub it through like that. I'll dip the brush again lightly. We'll grab another handful, we'll pull it back on itself. Of course, we're going to be glued all to every bit of this wingtip, so you can bring the glue right up to the edge. And you just work your way around, and then once you flip it over, if there's any puckering or wrinkling, then you can take your iron and pull the wrinkles out like that. But we just work your way around. It's activated that glue that's already on there. It's soaked through. It's embedded that fabric into that base layer of glue. We'll grab another handful, pull it back toward itself. We'll wet it. And I usually just do 2, 3, 4 inches at a time. You got to give it just a second or two to dry.
If you get in a situation with AirTech and all of a sudden it acts like it ain't wanting to stick, you've got things too wet. And usually I'll just let it hold out, let it sit in the air for maybe 20 seconds, or I've even actually raised it up and blow just a little air under it just to get a little bit of the reducer off, and then it'll stick down. So sometimes you'll get it actually too wet and then it's wanting to just go up and down with you. But you'll notice, you know, when he's finished or he can flip the wing over, he can come all the way on around to the edge of that and glue it. And you just always, and then he'll probably on this first one go ahead and lap it under it to have a good hold. But you always have to remember when you flip the wing over, you think, well, I've got everything pre-glued on both sides of the wing, but you got to take an effect. You're going to have to put another base of glue on this because you're going to come around and glue to it. There's a little glue there because he's using thin to go through, but not near enough. So just always make sure that when you're coming around the other side, and that even can be a situation that you can put you a mark out here after this is very lightly shrinked, to have a mark that you can actually let that piece of fabric come over and actually lap out just to get a good hold. Now you can just come to there and then your wide piece of tape will sandwich in and hold it also.
But yeah, we'll just continue. You can see as you get toward the center, you start getting a few more wrinkles, little wrinkles, and those are not too bad. You can smooth them out with your thumb.
That one, where's that?
Yeah, and you can pull. You can notice that if you're pulling under, if I move to this direction or this direction, you can see that it can create a wrinkle. So you kind of have to find the happy medium, and you wet it through, then smooth it out with your thumb, and just work your way. Continue to work your way around.
And that's basically the way we do a wingtip for a J3 or whatever. And other planes, there'd be other little techniques that you do. If you notice there in the cove, just like in the wing root, we like to put a piece of fabric in first. That way our overlap, we're not dealing with trying to cover that little triangle as we go. But anyhow, that's just a short one on the way that we do a wingtip. There's probably other ways out there, and there's probably a lot of them that's better than ours, but that's just the way we do it. That's the way we can knock through it pretty quick and not have a lot of hours charged on a project. Thank you.